The stereo was playing Why Can't We Be Friends the day I told my best friend of over a decade that he had to get the fuck out of my house and my face in either order and that we were done. And that's neither poetic device nor poetic justice, it's just the facts. You remember what song was on when you were telling someone you've known that long to. Please and thank you, get the fuck out of your life. He stood in anger, said he should knock me the fuck out. I told him to go for it, or even better, just go. He held a fist to my face and everything was shaking. The punch meant for me was delivered to the wall. It was just standing there. Right place, wrong time. It took quite a while to plaster over the cracks. Filtering. Richard's dad said to Richard's mum that he would like to see their son, so Richard's mum called up the stairs to let us know that was the plan. This was the way the communication flowed in this house, always uphill. Richard told me he had to go and see his dad out back in the garden by the pool. When I wondered why, he scowled and told me that this was their bonding moment. His dad loved that pool, and it was always wise for Richard to play along. Richard's inner demons were only let out when his parents were not around. So it was all about how clear and blue and beautiful the pool looked. And Richard's dad was beaming. He never asked his son about the fights at school nor the things that happened in the neighbourhood. None of that mattered if the pool was blue and clear and sitting in perfect place under the clear blue sky as well. For all that Richard's dad could see was good, and Richard's mum would hold off any bad news. And the kink in the stairwell by the laundry chute. Sacrifice. We listened to the very best of Elton John on the road from Napier through Aotearoa. It was good, some decent songs, but it wasn't our choice at all. Richard's dad said that Pink Floyd was cold sweat music. I remember laughing at that description and only seeing it as a positive way to think about the band, but Richard warned me not to laugh and announced far too loudly I'm Still Standing was his favourite song. Whenever I hear it now, I wonder if he is, and I guess I have to wonder about how many not standing now might be due to something he did. You can't blame a father for not letting his son listen to Pink Floyd, and that's a shame. this might seem silly, but I remember playing Lou Reed's Transformer and Richard shook his head at that line about being hit with the flower. He said, that was fucking stupid. And I said, but it's a quote from Andy Warhol. In fact, it was a challenge. He dared Lou to write a song with that line, and I think Lou Reed nailed the assignment. Richard said he hated the way I loved all that faggot shit. And I remember telling him that it didn't matter at all, and why would you say that? And he reckoned that anyone that liked Transformer was obviously a fag, and I said that I wasn't, but so what if I was? And he said, you better not be. Because if you are, I will fucking destroy you, mate. So you better fucking not be. It made me like the album more, and him a whole lot less. When the music's over, he gave up on music really, and that should have been the clue. I shouldn't have excused many of his other behaviours, and I'm not sure that I did. But the way he just gave up on music, didn't care what was playing, stopped trying to play, that was enough of a sign. Our true common interest over, gone, tossed behind him like the previous night's bad memories. 24 empties in the crumpled foil. We no longer had anything to talk about. The Wall. I tried playing The Wall by Pink Floyd, but I'm not actually able to, not anymore. You see, my copy is forever trapped inside a red Sony Walkman. It hangs forever on a fabric belt inside the proud loops of some stonewashed jeans. There, with unlaced basketball boots beneath it, pedaling along the streets of Havelock North in the early 1990s, a flat deck truck drives by and the farmhands hanging from the back of it yell homo at whoever might be noticing, then high-five themselves with huge laughs as quarter-acre paradises blur into the background. The concrete sameness of the Hawke's Bay bourgeois had its soundtrack then and is holding on to it still. The local government practically issued copies of the album on long play cassette alongside canvas army surplus school bags and a black marker to scrawl the name and attempt to draw in some version of the bricks. The town's aura of being so pleased with itself was like a fawning golden hue, as if the people that bought cheap housing on the promise of it one day prospering were the same people that had the luck to plant the grapes in the perfect conditions and wait, and wait, and wait. to it all again, but that brings back the memories of the madman that co-opted my teenage soul. I gave him the best years of friendship, but only realised he was a vacant lunatic when it was far too late. That in itself feels like the background notes for a Roger Waters lyric, so ironies roll deep in those undulating hills. The loops of tape still circling themselves on the golden crown of that lush green paradise. Johnny No Memorial Library. It was a set of shelves down the back of the class, some comics and books, a couple of tapes and some toys, action figures, and a sign made at woodwork with the burner. All of it a tribute to a fictional soldier who died in a very real war that had finished before we even knew what it was. But with 60s music back in vogue and our imaginations collectively running, we paid tribute to Johnny, who never should have run over the top, even though, of course, he never did. The teacher let it happen until it took over the classroom with parents reporting kids having trouble sleeping. But Richard said when asked to tell that to Johnny, who won't ever get the chance of a sleepless night again. We watched a lot of horror films, mostly silly ones for fun. In French class, the teacher asked us to draw pictures of our family members. We would add the names and relationships en français after. Richard asked if he could draw Freddie. The teacher asked if that was an uncle. "Oh, he's more than an uncle to me," he replied cryptically. Then drew 4 pages of Freddy Krueger mutilating babies. He handed it in with a grin, waved to the class as he went to say whatever to the principal. This, the dead birds, spitting in his brother's food, the way he talked about sex earlier than any of us, it all started to add up. My bike tyre slashed one day, and he offered to help me look for the cunt that did it. Didn't need to look far. DF321. For my 21st birthday, he bought me a set of clippers. It came with the slight threat, we're going to shave your head. I had a ponytail, which is its own crime these days. And the plan was, first one under the table received a complimentary haircut. But we all kept drinking, which was the only flaw in the plan. We were better at drinking than planning. So late in the afternoon that very next day, which felt like the same day only stretched out across a week, Richard grabbed the clippers and stood shaving at his own hair. He laughed as bits fell into the pint he was still drinking, while looking like one of the reluctant privates from Full Metal Jacket. I outdrank them all that next day too and returned to Wellington with my hair tickling my neck under my shirt. And then sometime not so long after, in a bar one night in front of a crowd, I took a knife and cut my ponytail and scattered it like tiny trophies all through the room. The owners looked disgusted, but Richard slapped me hard on the back. "Well done, mate," he said with a hard draw on his cig. Next day my flatmate finished the job and shaved the rest of my head, and I bought my first beanie, but there are some things you can't cover up completely. Bad gateway drugs. We didn't have the internet to rot our minds. We had to do it ourselves. It took a lot longer because no one was watching. A disturbing story. You had that story about the flatmate who had a pet lamb. You reckon you killed it, dried it in the shed and skinned it, cooked it and served it, and then told her you were sad for her about her missing lamb, then told her she'd just eaten it. That is a disturbing story, but it's also bullshit, which only makes it more disturbing. But you're always doing that, making such stories. I almost thought it was creative, but that's the benefit of the doubt that arrives on the back of a long friendship. And you can't get people arrested for their phony stories. Bad sport. When Richard was drinking, it was lookout. It was everything from life of the always impromptu party to home demolition. No one could know when to blow a whistle to signal the changing of sides, and what good was being a referee. But I found myself vice captain of his team, captain of the opposition, a coach for one team or the other, and even an umpire too. That's possibly why I found it so exhausting. That's possibly why he liked to call everything a game. He loved seeing people running around. He loved to win trophies and burn the stadium to the ground. One New Year's Eve. A mate of mine, not a mate anymore, used to carry with him a card. A picture of a monkey swinging from a tree. Well, chimpanzee, but we call them monkeys when we're telling the stories. He'd laugh when we asked why he carried that card. He told us we'd never know when it might come in handy. We all went along with it. He's mad, we'd say, laughing. Little did we know. And then we knew. And we didn't want to. One New Year's Eve you were walking along with him, the pub's all boring, the queues all long, or else the bar was dead, nothing in between. And then he tapped a guy on the shoulder as you waited in one queue. Oh, you thought, but still hoped for the best. Next thing. And what did you say, cunt? Said your friend, your pal, the meathead. You're getting smart, cunt. You're getting smart, cunt. You're getting smart, eh? You're getting smart, eh? He said to a person whose lip was buttoned, who didn't say a thing, and possibly in that moment couldn't, for the fear enveloping him. You're getting smart, eh? He said. Next thing, bang! A big smack behind his ear. Dull thud as he hit the concrete. A horrible sound. Next thing, bang, a big smack behind his ear, dull thud as he hit the concrete. A horrible sound, and your mate laughing for no apparent reason, the madness enveloping him. Alive with the glow of too many beers, and then the bouncer grabbing him. They wrestled for not too long. Back pocket, mate, back pocket, your friend said, lost deep inside his own movie and long ago. Signalled to his wallet, and the bouncer opens it with a shrug. Well, you want some ID, your mate said elated, handing him the card with the monkey on it from the Weet-Bix packet. The start of the worst summer you ever had. Richard liked to say he was the only one with a real drinking problem, 2 hands and only 1 mouth. His was an incredible thirst, an insatiable drive, and you could never imagine yourself ever being able to compete, let alone wanting to. In fact, you could nearly die just trying. It soon became very trying indeed. One day a 5-litre bottle of whiskey was sat there on the doorstep, apparently a prize from a raffle. But there was always a little story, and there was hardly ever much actual proof. Apparently the golf club were good cunts, eh? For making sure on that promise, and you were lucky too, because this was basically his contribution to the rent, even if you'd have preferred some actual money. But money would have been actual proof. Whiskey was a better wee story. Also, don't hold out on that rent contribution once received, eh? Be a bit rude not to open it for a little tippy, wouldn't it? Well, you'll never know, because this was suggested as he was opening it. Soon anyone that entered the room was commanded to take a shot. You went to the movies to see whatever was on, just to not be there. You got back as late as you could. You had plenty of things on your mind besides all of this mess, so you went for a walk around the block before turning up back home to the flat, and there he was, holding court in his rugby shorts, his elbow propped up on a makeshift bar, showing people how he could bend it both ways, laughing at his own jokes. Big bellows of smoke circled as if to put a thought bubble around the cliche of it all. But not that much thinking was going on. And the downstairs neighbour didn't have any interest in being there, but made the mistake of living directly underneath all this noise, and the bigger mistake of checking to see what all this noise was anyway. So he was called up, and just as soon as he made it across the threshold, he wished that he hadn't. He turned down the first offer of a shot and was immediately called a faggot. And yeah, that could be shrugged off, but then another taunt and more questioning on both his lack of desire to drink and his sexuality. Next thing, he was slugged in the side of the head. No reason. Well, there was always a wee reason, there just wasn't ever much actual truth. Smart cunt looking down on us for having a good time. Smart cunt looking down on us. We're just trying to have a good time. You then had to drag the slim weight of him by the feet to the door, then lift him up, carry him downstairs, apologising profusely to the gathered housemates below. They were screaming at you because they needed to know what was wrong with you all. And you could have been given all the time in the world and you'd never be able to answer that one. The police would be getting a call, they said, fair, and the landlord too. And you'd be hearing from him again. The last time he called, it was about 4 PM and it woke you up, so that didn't impress him so much. Back upstairs, the weight of a cold new world was on your shoulders and the whiskey bottle was on its ear. A slug to the side of its head had toppled it too, and there was no reason for that either. He was dancing to the Curtis Mayfield you had put on the stereo. This is a Western song from the Tibetan singing bowls. When you're younger, it's easier to make friends than to break up with friends. Older, it's far easier to drift apart or call it quits, to decide the alignment no longer fits, to make the call. I would never let another Richard in right now, and I wouldn't and haven't for ages. That's not because of any scars. But then again, of course it is. Past sure is tense. He lived in a house in the country all alone. 4 bedrooms and one was just for the rubbish. Said it didn't smell so bad when you closed the door. Never had any visitors. See above. Reckon he spent whole nights with the stereo on out on the porch with a drink in hand. Said it felt good just to scream. No one could hear you out there. That's when I knew he was gone. The friend I'd had, past tense. Things were now very tense whenever he passed. I wanted him gone, though not like that. It was so clear that he was drowning, the sea above. Richard once told me he thought that he could probably choke a person right out. He reckoned the proof he was a good person was that he didn't ever do it. still don't know exactly when he turned. I get the feeling it was a slow burn, but 3 years in the boys' only school didn't help him, or helped him to turn, if you want to look at it that way, but I appreciate that view. What bothered me most was the easy way he could win a room, take them over, make you seem like the crazy one, turn the gas lighting down low and the heat up high, bray loudly into the night. That smirk was one for the pantomime stage, the unsettled rage that cooked so slowly inside him. There were several fires, really. There were car crashes too. He fled the scene of at least one major crash that was entirely his fault, and the takeaway was that he was a marvel of modern science for making it out alive, not a scoundrel or villain or nuisance for creating public damages, endangering lives, ruining things. But he was always ruining things. Several fires, maybe one is burning still, maybe something is stirring deep inside of him. Some fires you can't put out. In another life, you stayed put, you didn't leave, there was no drift. In another life, you never lost the plot, you kept on reading, never needing to borrow books from my shelves to impress the girls from the pub. In another life, you didn't rat me out to the cops to save your own ass. Your goose was never cooked because the straight line was the only one you walked. We still talked about music and movies, played the odd round of golf, laughed a lot at all the things that cracked us up for all those times. We would still be friends in another life. the last time I saw Richard. No Joni Mitchell song. If it had been playing, he'd have turned it off and gone, "What's that faggot shit? Just put on some Guns N' Roses." He wasn't even meant to be there. It was my birthday and I had not invited him. A well-meaning mutual friend wanted everything to be okay for all of us, but that wasn't going to ever be the case again. That wasn't going to ever be the case again. So it ended with Richard holding me against the wall. It ended with Richard holding me against the wall. He hit me twice, and I took those hits, refusing to get involved any further. I told him to hit me, and he did, as if it could ever prove anything for either of us. He ran from the room, tears of rage, and for a split second I actually felt sorry for him. Then my face really started to hurt. The Joni Mitchell record, I put it on and we tried to continue a party. I've always liked in jokes where I'm the only one that gets it. It wasn't worth taking the hits, of course, but hell of a punchline. So I've written this book, I've handed it in. All of the stories you're hearing now and more are in the pages. These are the things that raged through his mind then and they hurtle through my mind now. These were the things that happened, well, some of them. guess I'm asking you to believe me. I guess I am doing my best not to deceive you, but I hand the book in and it doesn't have an ending. I can't find the right poem to finish. I have mentioned Pink Floyd in a poetry book more than anyone else ever will. And yet still, I find my final moment on a plane home from Auckland. The book is being edited, and I'm still wondering how it finishes. Comfortably Numb is playing while I stare out the wing of the plane. It's 7 a.m. and after months of peace, you are on my mind again, Richard. So many have asked what you'd make of all this, and I've said so often now that you'd be chuffed, stoked, just not bothered at all. Why, I'm almost starting to believe it myself. My face almost touching the frame of the window of the plane. As David Gilmour's guitar solo strikes like the sun. She said, Richard is real? And I said, yeah. She said, I thought he was your brother. And I said, nah. She said, my Richard was called Claire. And I said, we all have them. She said, and they have us. I'm still thinking about that. Thanks.
Hello.